Book 16. Fire being now thrown on the ship of Protesilaus, Patroclus fights in the armor of Achilles. He drives the Trojans back, but is in the end killed by Euphorbus and Hector. Thus did they fight about the ship of Protesilaus. Then Patroclus drew near to Achilles with tears welling from his eyes, as from some spring whose crystal stream falls over the ledges of a high precipice. When Achilles saw him thus weeping, he was sorry for him and said, "Why, Patroclus, do you stand there weeping like some silly child that comes running to her mother and begs to be taken up and carried?" She catches hold of her mother's dress to stay her, though she is in a hurry, and looks tearfully up until her mother carries her. Even such tears, Patroclus, are you now shedding? Have you anything to say to the Myrmidons or to myself? Or have you had news from Phthia which you alone know? They tell me Menoetius son of Actor is still alive, as also Peleus son of Aeacus among the Myrmidons, men whose loss we too should bitterly deplore. Or are you grieving about the Argives and the way in which they are being killed at the ships through their own high-handed doings? Do not hide anything from me, but tell me that both of us may know about it. Then, O knight Patroclus, with a deep sigh, you answered, "Achilles, son of Peleus, foremost champion of the Achaeans, do not be angry, but I weep for the disaster that has now befallen the Argives. All those who have been their champions so far are lying at the ships, wounded by sword or spear. Brave Diomed, son of Tydeus, has been hit with a spear, while famed Ulysses and Agamemnon have received sword wounds. Eurypylus again has been struck with an arrow in the thigh. Skilled apothecaries are attending to these heroes and healing them of their wounds. Are you still, O Achilles, so inexorable? May it never be my lot to nurse such a passion as you have done, to the baning of your own good name. Who in future story will speak well of you unless you now save the Argives from ruin? You know no pity. Knight Peleus was not your father, nor Thetis your mother. But the grey sea bore you, and the sheer cliffs begot you, so cruel and remorseless are you. If, however, you are kept back through knowledge of some oracle, or if your mother Thetis has told you something from the mouth of Jove, at least send me and the Myrmidons with me, if I may bring deliverance to the Danaans. Let me moreover wear your armor. The Trojans may thus mistake me for you and quit the field, so that the hard-pressed sons of the Achaeans may have breathing time, which while they are fighting may hardly be. We who are fresh might soon drive tired men back from our ships and tents to their own city." He knew not what he was asking, nor that he was suing for his own destruction. Achilles was deeply moved and answered, "What, noble Patroclus, are you saying? I know no prophesyings which I am heeding, nor has my mother told me anything from the mouth of Jove. But I am cut to the very heart that one of my own rank should dare to rob me, because he is more powerful than I am. This, after all that I have gone through, is more than I can endure. The girl whom the sons of the Achaeans chose for me, whom I won as the fruit of my spear on having sacked a city, her has King Agamemnon taken from me as though I were some common vagrant. Still, let bygones be bygones. No man may keep his anger forever," I said. I would not relent till battle, and the cry of war had reached my own ships. Nevertheless, now gird my armor about your shoulders and lead the Myrmidons to battle, for the dark cloud of Trojans has burst furiously over our fleet. The Argives are driven back onto the beach, cooped within a narrow space, and the whole people of Troy has taken heart to sally out against them, because they see not the visor of my helmet gleaming near them. Had they seen this, there would not have been a creek nor grip that had not been filled with their dead as they fled back again. And so, it would have been. If only King Agamemnon had dealt fairly by me. As it is, the Trojans have beset our host. Diomed, son of Tydeus, no longer wields his spear to defend the Danaans, neither have I heard the voice of the son of Atreus coming from his hated head, whereas that of murderous Hector rings in my cars as he gives orders to the Trojans, who triumph over the Achaeans and fill the whole plain with their cry of battle. But even so, Patroclus, fall upon them and save the fleet, lest the Trojans fire it and prevent us from being able to return. Do, however, as I now bid you, that you may win me great honor from all the Danaans, and that they may restore the girl to me again and give me rich gifts into the bargain. When you have driven the Trojans from the ships, come back again. Though Juno's thundering husband should put triumph within your reach, do not fight the Trojans further in my absence, or you will rob me of glory that should be mine. And do not for lust of battle go on killing the Trojans, nor lead the Achaeans on to Iliad, lest one of the ever-living gods from Olympus attack you. For Phoebus Apollo loves them well. Return when you have freed the ships from peril, and let others wage war upon the plain. Would, by Father Jove, Minerva, and Apollo, that not a single man of all the Trojans might be left alive, nor yet of the Argives, but that we two might be alone left to tear aside the mantle that veils the brow of Troy. Thus did they converse, but Ajax could no longer hold his ground for the shower of darts that rained upon him. The will of Jove and the javelins of the Trojans were too much for him. The helmet that gleamed about his temples rang with the continuous clatter of the missiles that kept pouring onto it and onto the cheek pieces that protected his face. Moreover, his left shoulder was tired with having held his shield so long. Yet for all this, let fly at him as they would, they could not make him give ground. He could hardly draw his breath. The sweat rained from every pore of his body. He had not a moment's respite, and on all sides he was beset by danger upon danger. And now, tell me, O Muses, that hold your mansions on Olympus, how fire was thrown upon the ships of the Achaeans. Hector came close up, and let drive with his great sword at the ashen spear of Ajax. He cut it clean in two, just behind where the point was fastened onto the shaft of the spear. Ajax, therefore, had now nothing but a headless spear, while the bronze point flew some way off and came ringing down onto the ground. Ajax knew the hand of heaven in this, and was dismayed at seeing that Jove had now left him utterly defenseless, and was willing victory for the Trojans. Therefore he drew back, and the Trojans flung fire upon the ship, which was at once wrapped in flame. The fire was now flaring about the ship's stern, whereon Achilles smote his two thighs and said to Patroclus, "Up, noble knight, for I see the glare of hostile fire at our fleet. Up, lest they destroy our ships, and there be no way by which we may retreat. Gird on your armor at once, while I call our people together." As he spoke, Patroclus put on his armor. First he greaved his legs with greaves of good make, and fitted with ankle clasps of silver. After this he donned the cuirass of the son of Aeacus, richly inlaid and studded. He hung his silver-studded sword of bronze about his shoulders, and then his mighty shield. On his comely head he set his helmet, well wrought, with a crest of horsehair that nodded menacingly above it. He grasped two redoubtable spears that suited his hands, but he did not take the spear of noble Achilles, so stout and strong, for none other of the Achaeans could wield it, though Achilles could do so easily. This was the ashen spear from Mount Pelion, which Chiron had cut upon a mountain-top and had given to Peleus wherewith to deal out death among heroes. He bade Automedon yoke his horses with all speed, for he was the man whom he held in honor next after Achilles, and on whose support in battle he could rely most firmly. Automedon therefore yoked the fleet horses, Xanthus and Balius, steeds that could fly like the wind. These were they whom the harpy Podage bore to the west wind, as she was grazing in a meadow by the waters of the river Oceanus. In the side traces he set the noble horse Pedasus, whom Achilles had brought away with him when he sacked the city of Eion, and who, mortal steed though he was, could take his place along with those that were immortal. Meanwhile, Achilles went about everywhere among the tents and bade his Myrmidons put on their armour, even as fierce ravening wolves that are feasting upon a honed stag which they have killed upon the mountains, and their jaws are red with blood. They go in a pack to lap water from the clear spring with their long thin tongues, and they reek of blood and slaughter. They know not what fear is, for it is hunger drives them. Even so did the leaders and counsellors of the Myrmidons gather round the good squire of the fleet descendant of Iacchus, and among them stood Achilles himself, cheering on both men and horses. 50 ships had noble Achilles brought to Troy, and in each there was a crew of 50 oarsmen. Over these he set 5 captains whom he could trust, while he was himself commander over them all. Menestheus, of the gleaming corslet, son to the river Spacius that streams from heaven, was captain of the first company. Fair Polydora, daughter of Peleus, bore him to ever-flowing Spacius. A woman mated with a god, but he was called son of Borus, son of Perieres, with whom his mother was living as his wedded wife, and who gave great wealth to gain her. The second company was led by noble Eudorus, son to an unwedded woman. Polymele, daughter of Philus the graceful dancer, bore him. The mighty slayer of Argos was enamoured of her as he saw her among the singing women at a dance held in honour of Diana, the rushing huntress of the golden arrows. He therefore, Mercury, giver of all good, went with her into an upper chamber and lay with her in secret, whereon she bore him a noble son, Eudorus, singularly fleet of foot and in fight valiant. When Ilithuia, goddess of the pains of childbirth, brought him to the light of day, and he saw the face of the sun, mighty Echecal, son of Actor, took the mother to wife, and gave great wealth to gain her. But her father Phyllis brought the child up and took care of him, doting as fondly upon him as though he were his own son. The third company was led by Pisander, son of Maemulus, the finest spearman among all the Myrmidons, next to Achilles' own comrade Patroclus. The old knight Phoenix was captain of the fourth company, and Alcimedon, noble son of Laerceus of the fifth. When Achilles had chosen his men, and had stationed them all with their captains, he charged them straitly, saying, "Myrmidons, remember your threats against the Trojans while you were at the ships in the time of my anger, and you were all complaining of me. Cruel son of Peleus, you would say, your mother must have suckled you on gall, so ruthless are you. You keep us here at the ships against our will. If you are so relentless, it were better we went home over the sea. Often have you gathered, and thus chided with me. The hour is now come for those high feats of arms that you have so long been pining for. Therefore keep high hearts, each one of you, to do battle with the Trojans." With these words he put heart and soul into them all, and they serried their companies yet more closely when they heard the words of their king, as the stones which a builder sets in the wall of some high house, which is to give shelter from the winds. Even so closely were the helmets and bossed shields set against one another, shield pressed on shield, helm on helm, and man on man. So close were they that the horsehair plumes on the gleaming ridges of their helmets touched each other as they bent their heads. In front of them all, 2 men put on their armour, Patroclus and Automedon, 2 men with but one mind to lead the Myrmidons. Then Achilles went inside his tent and opened the lid of the strong chest which silver-footed Thetis had given him to take on board ship. and which she had filled with shirts, cloaks to keep out the cold, and good thick rugs. In this chest he had a cup of rare workmanship, from which no man but himself might drink. Nor would he make offering from it to any other god, save only to Father Jove. He took the cup from the chest and cleansed it with sulphur. This done, he rinsed it clean water, and after he had washed his hands, he drew wine. Then he stood in the middle of the court and prayed, looking towards heaven and making his drink offering of wine. Nor was he unseen of Jove, whose joy is in thunder. "King Jove," he cried, "Lord of Dodona, god of the Pelasgi, who dwellest afar, you who hold wintry Dodona in your sway, where your prophets, the Selli, dwell around you with their feet unwashed and their couches made upon the ground. If you heard me when I prayed to you aforetime, and did me honour while you sent disaster on the Achaeans, vouchsafe me now the fulfilment of yet this further prayer. I shall stay here where my ships are lying, but I shall send my comrade into battle at the head of many Myrmidons. Grant, O all-seeing Jove, that victory may go with him. Put your courage into his heart, that Hector may learn whether my squire is man enough to fight alone, or whether his might is only then so indomitable when I myself enter the turmoil of war. Afterwards, when he has chased the fight and the cry of battle from the ships, grant that he may return unharmed with his armour and his comrades, fighters in close combat." Thus did he pray, and all counselling Jove heard his prayer. Part of it he did indeed vouchsafe him, but not the whole. He granted that Patroclus should thrust back war and battle from the ships, but refused to let him come safely out of the fight. When he had made his drink offering and had thus prayed, Achilles went inside his tent and put back the cup into his chest. Then he again came out, for he still loved to look upon the fierce fight that raged between the Trojans and Achaeans. Meanwhile, the armed band that was about Patroclus marched on till they sprang high in hope upon the Trojans. They came swarming out like wasps whose nests are by the roadside, and whom silly children love to tease, whereon any one who happens to be passing may get stung. Or again, if a wayfarer going along the road vexes them by accident, every wasp will come flying out in a fury to defend his little ones. Even with such rage and courage did the Myrmidons swarm from their ships, and their cry of battle rose heavenwards. Patroclus called out to his men at the top of his voice, "Myrmidons, followers of Achilles, son of Peleus, be men, my friends. Fight with might and with main, that we may win glory for the son of Peleus, who is far the foremost man at the ships of the Argives. He and his close fighting followers, the son of Atreus King Agamemnon, will thus learn his folly in showing no respect to the bravest of the Achaeans." With these words he put heart and soul into them all, and they fell in a body upon the Trojans. The ships rang again with the cry which the Achaeans raised, and when the Trojans saw the brave son of Menœtius and his squire all gleaming in their armour, they were daunted, and their battalions were thrown into confusion, for they thought the fleet son of Peleus must now have put aside his anger and have been reconciled to Agamemnon. Every one, therefore, looked round about to see whither he might fly for safety. Patroclus first aimed a spear into the middle of the press, where men were packed most closely, by the stern of the ship of Protesilaus. He hit Pyraechmes, who had led his Paeonian horsemen from the Amydon and the broad waters of the river Axius. The spear struck him on the right shoulder, and with a groan he fell backwards in the dust. On this his men were thrown into confusion, for by killing their leader, who was the finest soldier among them, Patroclus struck panic into them all. He thus drove them from the ship and quenched the fire that was then blazing, leaving the half-burnt ship to lie where it was. The Trojans were now driven back with a shout that rent the skies, while the Danaans poured after them from their ships, shouting also without ceasing. As when Jove, gatherer of the thundercloud, spreads a dense canopy on the top of some lofty mountain, and all the peaks, the jutting headlands, and forest glades show out in the great light that flashes from the bursting heavens, even so, when the Danaans had now driven back the fire from their ships, they took breath for a little while. But the fury of the fight was not yet over, for the Trojans were not driven back in utter rout, but still gave battle, and were ousted from their ground only by sheer fighting. The fight then became more scattered, and the chieftains killed one another when and how they could. The valiant son of Menoetius first drove his spear into the thigh of Eriolicus. Just as he was turning round, the point went clean through, and broke the bone so that he fell forward. Meanwhile, Menelaus struck Thoas in the chest, where it was exposed near the rim of his shield, and he fell dead. The son of Phyleus saw Amphiclus about to attack him, and ere he could do so, took aim at the upper part of his thigh, where the muscles are thicker than in any other part. The spear tore through all the sinews of the leg, and his eyes were closed in darkness. Of the sons of Nestor, one, Antilochus, speared Atymnius, driving the point of the spear through his throat, and down he fell. Maris then sprang on Antilochus in hand-to-hand fight to avenge his brother, and bestrode the body spear in hand, but valiant Thrasymedes was too quick for him, and in a moment had struck him in the shoulder ere he could deal his blow. His aim was true, and the spear severed all the muscles at the root of his arm, and tore them right down to the bone. So he fell heavily to the ground, and his eyes were closed in darkness. Thus did these two noble comrades of Sarpedon go down to Erebus, slain by the two sons of Nestor. They were the warrior sons of Amisodorus, who had reared the invincible Chimaera, to the bane of many. Ajax, son of Oileus, sprang on Cleobulus and took him alive as he was entangled in the crush, but he killed him then and there by a sword blow on the neck. The sword reeked with his blood, while dark death and the strong hand of fate gripped him and closed his eyes. Peneleos and Lycon now met in close fight, for they had missed each other with their spears. They had both thrown without effect, so now they drew their swords. Lycon struck the plumed crest of Peneleos' helmet, but his sword broke at the hilt, while Peneleos smote Lycon on the neck under the ear. The blade sank so deep that the head was held on by nothing but the skin, and there was no more life left in him. Meriones gave chase to Acamas on foot and caught him up just as he was about to mount his chariot. He drove a spear through his right shoulder so that he fell headlong from the car, and his eyes were closed in darkness. Idomeneus speared Erymas in the mouth. The bronze point of the spear went clean through it beneath the brain, crashing in among the white bones and smashing them up. His teeth were all of them knocked out, and the blood came gushing in a stream from both his eyes. It also came gurgling up from his mouth and nostrils, and the darkness of death enfolded him round about. Thus did these chieftains of the Danaans each of them kill his man, as ravening wolves seize on kids or lambs, fastening on them when they are alone on the hillsides and have strayed from the main flock through the carelessness of the shepherd. And when the wolves see this, they pounce upon them at once, because they cannot defend themselves. Even so did the Danaans now fall on the Trojans, who fled with ill-omened cries in their panic and had no more fight left in them. Meanwhile, great Ajax kept on trying to drive a spear into Hector, but Hector was so skilful that he held his broad shoulders well under cover of his ox-hide shield, ever on the lookout for the whizzing of the arrows and the heavy thud of the spears. He well knew that the fortunes of the day had changed, but still stood his ground and tried to protect his comrades. As when a cloud goes up into heaven from Olympus, rising out of a clear sky when Jove is brewing a gale. Even with such panic-stricken rout did the Trojans now fly, and there was no order in their going. Hector's fleet horses bore him and his armour out of the fight, and he left the Trojan host penned in by the deep trench against their will. Many a yoke of horses snapped the pole of their chariots in the trench, and left their master's car behind them. Patroclus gave chase, calling impetuously on the Danaans, and full of fury against the Trojans, who, being now no longer in a body, filled all the ways with their cries of panic and rout. The air was darkened with the clouds of dust they raised, and the horses strained every nerve in their flight from the tents and ships towards the city. Patroclus kept on heading his horses wherever he saw most men flying in confusion, cheering on his men the while. Chariots were being smashed in all directions, and many a man came tumbling down from his own car to fall beneath the wheels of that of Patroclus, whose immortal steeds, given by the gods to Peleus, sprang over the trench at a bound as they sped onward. He was intent on trying to get near Hector, for he had set his heart on spearing him, but Hector's horses were now hurrying him away. As the whole dark earth bows before some tempest on an autumn day, when Jove rains his hardest to punish men for giving crooked judgment in their courts, and driving justice therefrom without heed to the decrees of heaven, all the rivers run full, and the torrents tear many a new channel as they roar headlong from the mountains to the dark sea. And it fares ill with the works of men. Even such was the stress and strain of the Trojan horses in their flight. Patroclus now cut off the battalions that were nearest to him and drove them back to the ships. They were doing their best to reach the city, but he would not let them, and bore down on them between the river and the ships in war. Many a fallen comrade did he then avenge. First he hit Pronous with a spear on the chest, where it was exposed near the rim of his shield, and he fell heavily to the ground. Next he sprang on Festor, son of Enops, who was sitting all huddled up in his chariot, for he had lost his head, and the reins had been torn out of his hands. Patroclus went up to him and drove a spear into his right jaw. He thus hooked him by the teeth, and the spear pulled him over the rim of his car. As one who sits at the end of some jutting rock and draws a strong fish out of the sea with a hook and a line, even so with his spear did he pull Thestor all gaping from his chariot. He then threw him down on his face, and he died while falling. On this, as Euryleus was on coming to attack him, he struck him full on the head with a stone, and his brains were all battered inside his helmet, whereon he fell headlong to the ground, and the pangs of death took hold upon him. Then he laid low, one after the other, Erymas, Amphoterus, Epaltes, Tlepolemus, Ichius, son of Damastor, Pyrrhus, Iphias, Whippus, and Polymelus, son of Argeus. Now when Sarpedon saw his comrades, men who wore ungirdled tunics, being overcome by Patroclus son of Menoetius, he rebuked the Lycians, saying, "Shame on you! Where are you flying to? Show your mettle. I will myself meet this man in fight, and learn who it is that is so masterful. He has done us much hurt, and has stretched many a brave man upon the ground." He sprang from his chariot as he spoke, and Patroclus, when he saw this, leaped onto the ground also. The two then rushed at one another with loud cries like eagle-beaked crook-taloned vultures that scream and tear at one another in some high mountain fastness. The son of scheming Saturn looked down upon them in pity, and said to Juno, who was his wife and sister, "Alas, that it should be the lot of Sarpedon, whom I love so dearly, to perish by the hand of Patroclus. I am in two minds whether to catch him up out of the fight and set him down safe and sound in the fertile land of Lycia, or to let him now fall by the hand of the son of Menoetius." And Juno answered, "Most dread son of Saturn, what is this that you are saying? Would you snatch a mortal man? whose doom has long been fated, out of the jaws of death? Do as you will, but we shall not all of us be of your mind. I say further, and lay my saying to your heart, that if you send Sarpedon safely to his own home, some other of the gods will be also wanting to escort his son out of battle. For there are many sons of gods fighting round the city of Troy, and you will make everyone jealous. If, however, you are fond of him and pity him, let him indeed fall by the hand of Patroclus. But as soon as the life is gone out of him, send death and sweet sleep to bear him off the field and take him to the broad lands of Lycia, where his brothers and his kinsmen will bury him with mound and pillar, in due honour to the dead. The sire of gods and men assented, but he shed a rain of blood upon the earth in honour of his son, whom Patroclus was about to kill on the rich plain of Troy, far from his home. When they were now come close to one another, Patroclus struck Thrasydemus, the brave squire of Sarpedon, in the lower part of the belly, and killed him. Sarpedon then aimed a spear at Patroclus and missed him, but he struck the horse Pedasus in the right shoulder, and it screamed aloud as it lay, groaning in the dust, until the life went out of it. The other two horses began to plunge. The pole of the chariot cracked, and they got entangled in the reins through the fall of the horse that was yoked along with them. But Automaton knew what to do. Without the loss of a moment, he drew the keen blade that hung by his sturdy thigh, and cut the third horse adrift, whereon the other two righted themselves, and pulling hard at the reins again went together into battle. Sarpedon now took a second aim at Patroclus, and again missed him. The point of the spear passed over his left shoulder without hitting him. Patroclus then aimed in his turn, and the spear sped not from his hand in vain, for he hit Sarpedon just where the midriff surrounds the ever-beating heart. He fell like some oak or silver poplar or tall pine to which woodmen have laid their axes upon the mountains to make timber for shipbuilding. Even so did he lie stretched at full length in front of his chariot and horses, moaning and clutching at the blood-stained dust, as when a lion springs with a bound upon a herd of cattle and fastens on a great black bull, which dies bellowing in its clutches. Even so did the leader of the Lycian warriors struggle in death as he fell by the hand of Patroclus. He called on his trusty comrade and said, "Glaucus, my brother, hero among heroes, put forth all your strength, fight with might and main. Now, if ever, quit yourself like a valiant soldier. First, go about among the Lycian captains and bid them fight for Sarpedon. Then yourself also do battle to save my armour from being taken. My name will haunt you henceforth and for ever, if the Achaeans rob me of my armour now that I have fallen at their ships. Do your very utmost and call all my people together." Death closed his eyes as he spoke. Patroclus planted his heel on his breast and drew the spear from his body, whereon his senses came out along with it, and he drew out both spear point and Sarpedon's soul at the same time. Hard by the Myrmidons held his snorting steeds, who were wild with panic at finding themselves deserted by their lords. Glaucus was overcome with grief when he heard what Sarpedon said, for he could not help him. He had to support his arm with his other hand, being in great pain through the wound which Teucer's arrow had given him when Teucer was defending the wall, as he, Glaucus, was assailing it. Therefore he prayed to far-darting Apollo, saying, "Hear me, O king, from your seat, maybe in the rich land of Lycia, or maybe in Troy. For in all places you can hear the prayer of one who is in distress, as I now am. I have a grievous wound, my hand is aching with pain. There is no staunching the blood, and my whole arm drags by reason of my hurt, so that I cannot grasp my sword, nor go among my foes and fight them, though our prince, Jove's son Sarpedon, is slain. Jove defended not his son. Do you, therefore, O king, heal me of my wound. Ease my pain and grant me strength. both to cheer on the Lycians and to fight along with them round the body of him who has fallen. Thus did he pray, and Apollo heard his prayer. He eased his pain, staunched the black blood from the wound, and gave him new strength. Glaucus perceived this, and was thankful that the mighty god had answered his prayer. Forthwith, therefore, he went among the Lycian captains, and bade them come to fight about the body of Sarpedon. From these he strode on among the Trojans to Polydamas, son of Panthous and Agenor. He then went in search of Aeneas and Hector, and when he had found them, he said, "Hector, you have utterly forgotten your allies, who languish here for your sake far from friends and home, while you do nothing to support them. Sarpedon, leader of the Lycian warriors, has fallen, he who was at once the right and might of Lycia. Mars has laid him low by the spear of Patroclus. Stand by him, my friends, and suffer not the Myrmidons to strip him of his armour, nor to treat his body with contumely in revenge for all the Danaans whom we have speared at the ships." As he spoke, the Trojans were plunged in extreme and ungovernable grief, for Sarpedon, alien though he was, had been one of the mainstays of their city, both as having much people with him and himself the foremost among them all. Led by Hector, who was infuriated by the fall of Sarpedon, they made instantly for the Danaans with all their might, while the undaunted spirit of Patroclus, son of Menoetius, cheered on the Achaeans. First he spoke to the two Ajaxes, men who needed no bidding. "Ajaxes," said he, "may it now please you to show yourselves the men you have always been, or even better. Sarpedon is fallen. He who was first to overleap the wall of the Achaeans. Let us take the body and outrage it. Let us strip the armour from his shoulders and kill his comrades if they try to rescue his body." He spoke to men who, of themselves, were full eager. Both sides, therefore, the Trojans and Lycians on the one hand, and the Myrmidons and Achaeans on the other, strengthened their battalions, and fought desperately about the body of Sarpedon, shouting fiercely the while. Mighty was the din of their armour as they came together, and Jove shed a thick darkness over the fight, to increase the toil of the battle over the body of his son. At first the Trojans made some headway against the Achaeans, for one of the best men among the Myrmidons was killed, Epagius, son of noble Agacles, who had erewhile been king in the good city of Budeum. But presently, having killed a valiant kinsman of his own, he took refuge with Peleus and Thetis, who sent him to Iliad, the land of noble steeds, to fight the Trojans under Achilles. Hector now struck him on the head with a stone, just as he had caught hold of the body, and his brains inside his helmet were all battered in, so that he fell face foremost upon the body of Sarpedon, and there died. Patroclus was enraged by the death of his comrade, and sped through the front ranks as swiftly as a hawk that swoops down on a flock of daws or starlings. Even so swiftly, O noble knight Patroclus, did you make straight for the Lycians and Trojans to avenge your comrade. Forthwith he struck Sthenelaus, the son of Ithamenes, on the neck with a stone, and broke the tendons that joined it to the head and spine. On this Hector and the front rank of his men gave ground, as far as a man can throw a javelin when competing for some prize, or even in battle. So far did the Trojans now retreat before the Achaeans. Glaucus, captain of the Lycians, was the first to rally them by killing Bathyclus, son of Chalcon, who lived in Hellas, and was the richest man among the Myrmidons. Glaucus turned round suddenly, just as Bathyclus, who was pursuing him, was about to lay hold of him, and drove his spear right into the middle of his chest, whereon he fell heavily to the ground. And the fall of so good a man filled the Achaeans with dismay, while the Trojans were exultant and came up in a body round the corpse. Nevertheless, the Achaeans, mindful of their prowess, bore straight down upon them. Meriones then killed a helmed warrior of the Trojans, Laogonus son of Onetor, who was priest of Jove of Mitidaida, and was honored by the people as though he were a god. Meriones struck him under the jaw and ear, so that life went out of him, and the darkness of death laid hold upon him. Aeneas then aimed a spear at Meriones, hoping to hit him under the shield as he was advancing, but Meriones saw it coming and stooped forward to avoid it, whereon the spear flew past him, and the point stuck in the ground, while the butt end went on quivering till Mars robbed it of its force. The spear, therefore, sped from Aeneas's hand in vain, and fell quivering to the ground. Aeneas was angry and said, "Meriones, you are a good dancer, but if I had hit you, my spear would soon have made an end of you." And Meriones answered, "Aeneas, for all your bravery, you will not be able to make an end of everyone who comes against you. You are only a mortal like myself, and if I were to hit you in the middle of your shield with my spear, however strong and self-confident you may be, I should soon vanquish you, and you would yield your life to Hades of the noble steeds." On this the son of Menoetius rebuked him and said, "Meriones, hero though you be, you should not speak thus. Taunting speeches, my good friend, will not make the Trojans draw away from the dead body. Some of them must go underground first, blows for battle, and words for counsel. Fight, therefore, and say nothing." He led the way as he spoke, and the hero went forward with him, as the sound of woodcutters in some forest glade upon the mountains, and the thud of their axes is heard afar. Even such a din now rose from earth, clash of bronze armour and of good ox-hide shields, as men smote each other with their swords and spears pointed at both ends. A man had need of good eyesight now to know Sarpedon, so covered was he from head to foot with spears and blood and dust. Men swarmed about the body, as flies that buzz round the full milk pails in spring when they are brimming with milk. Even so did they gather round Sarpedon, nor did Jove turn his keen eyes away for one moment from the fight, but kept looking at it all the time, for he was settling how best to kill Patroclus, and considering whether Hector should be allowed to end him now in the fight round the body of Sarpedon, and strip him of his armour, or whether he should let him give yet further trouble to the Trojans. In the end, he deemed it best that the brave squire of Achilles, son of Peleus, should drive Hector and the Trojans back towards the city and take the lives of many. First, therefore, he made Hector turn faint-hearted, whereon he mounted his chariot and fled, bidding the other Trojans fly also, for he saw that the scales of Jove had turned against him. Neither would the brave Lycians stand firm. They were dismayed when they saw their king lying struck to the heart amid a heap of corpses. For when the son of Saturn made the fight wax hot, many had fallen above him. The Achaeans, therefore, stripped the gleaming armour from his shoulders, and the brave son of Menoetius gave it to his men to take to the ships. Then Jove, lord of the storm clouds, said to Apollo, "Dear Phoebus, go, I pray you, and take Sarpedon out of range of the weapons, cleanse the black blood from off him, and then bear him a long way off, where you may wash him in the river, anoint him with ambrosia, and clothe him in immortal raiment. This done, commit him to the arms of the two fleet messengers, Death and Sleep, who will carry him straightway to the rich land of Lycia, where his brothers and kinsmen will inter him, and will raise both mound and pillar to his memory in due honour to the dead." Thus he spoke. Apollo obeyed his father's saying, and came down from the heights of Ida into the thick of the fight. Forthwith he took Sarpedon out of range of the weapons, and then bore him a long way off, where he washed him in the river, anointed him with ambrosia, and clothed him in immortal raiment. This done, he committed him to the arms of the two fleet messengers, Death and Sleep, who presently set him down in the rich land of Lycia. Meanwhile, Patroclus, with many a shout to his horses and to Automedon, pursued the Trojans and Lycians in the pride and foolishness of his heart. Had he but obeyed the bidding of the son of Peleus, he would have escaped death and have been scatheless. But the counsels of Jove pass man's understanding. He will put even a brave man to flight and snatch victory from his grasp. Or again, he will set him on to fight, as he now did when he put a high spirit into the heart of Patroclus. Who then first, and who last, was slain by you, O Patroclus, when the gods had now called you to meet your doom? First Adrestus, Autonus, Echeclus, Perimus, the son of Megas, Epister, and Melanippus. After these he killed Elassus, Mulius, and Pilates. These he slew, but the rest saved themselves by flight. The sons of the Achaeans would now have taken Troy by the hands of Patroclus, for his spear flew in all directions. Had not Phoebus Apollo taken his stand upon the wall to defeat his purpose and to aid the Trojans? Thrice did Patroclus charge at an angle of the high wall, and thrice did Apollo beat him back, striking his shield with his own immortal hands. When Patroclus was coming on like a god for yet a fourth time, Apollo shouted to him with an awful voice and said, "Draw back, noble Patroclus. It is not your lot to sack the city of the Trojan chieftains, nor yet will it be that of Achilles, who is a far better man than you are." On hearing this, Patroclus withdrew to some distance and avoided the anger of Apollo. Meanwhile, Hector was waiting with his horses inside the Scaean gates, in doubt whether to drive out again and go on fighting, or to call the army inside the gates. As he was thus doubting Phoebus, Apollo drew near him in the likeness of a young and lusty warrior. Asius, who was Hector's uncle, being own brother to Hecuba, and son of Demas, who lived in Phrygia by the waters of the river Sangarius, in his likeness. Jove's son Apollo now spoke to Hector, saying, "Hector, why have you left off fighting? It is ill done of you. If I were as much better a man than you as I am worse, you should soon rue your slackness. Drive straight toward Patroclus, if so be that Apollo may grant you a triumph over him, and you may rule him." With this the god went back into the hurly-burly, and Hector bade Cebriones drive again into the fight. Apollo passed in among them and struck panic into the Argives, while he gave triumph to Hector and the Trojans. Hector let the other Danaans alone and killed no man, but drove straight at Patroclus. Patroclus then sprang from his chariot to the ground, with a spear in his left hand, and in his right a jagged stone as large as his hand could hold. He stood still and threw it, nor did it go far without hitting someone. The cast was not in vain, for the stone struck Cebriones, Hector's charioteer, a bastard son of Priam, as he held the reins in his hands. The stone hit him on the forehead and drove his brows into his head, for the bone was smashed, and his eyes fell to the ground at his feet. He dropped dead from his chariot as though he were diving, and there was no more life left in him. Over him did you then vaunt, O knight Patroclus, saying, "Bless my heart, how active he is, and how well he dives. If we had been at sea, this fellow would have dived from the ship's side and brought up as many oysters as the whole crew could stomach, even in rough water, for he has dived beautifully off his chariot onto the ground. It seems, then, that there are divers also among the Trojans." As he spoke, he flung himself on Cebriones with the spring, as it were, of a lion, that while attacking a stockyard is himself struck in the chest, and his courage is his own bane. Even so furiously, O Patroclus, did you then spring upon Cebriones? Hector sprang also from his chariot to the ground. The pair then fought over the body of Cebriones, as two lions fight fiercely on some high mountain over the body of a stag that they have killed. Even so did these two mighty warriors, Patroclus, son of Menoetius, and brave Hector hack and hew at one another over the corpse of Cebriones. Hector would not let him go when he had once got him by the head, while Patroclus kept fast hold of his feet, and a fierce fight raged between the other Danaans and Trojans. As the east and south wind buffet one another when they beat upon some dense forest on the mountains, there is beech and ash and spreading cornel. The top of the trees roar as they beat on one another, and one can hear the boughs cracking and breaking. Even so did the Trojans and Achaeans spring upon one another and lay about each other, and neither side would give way. Many a pointed spear fell to ground, and many a winged arrow sped from its bowstring about the body of Cebriones. Many a great stone, moreover, beat on many a shield as they fought around his body. But there he lay in the whirling clouds of dust, all huge and hugely heedless of his driving now. So long as the sun was still high in mid-heaven, the weapons of either side were alike, deadly, and the people fell. But when he went down towards the time when men loose their oxen, the Achaeans proved to be beyond all forecast stronger, so that they drew Cebriones out of range of the darts and tumult of the Trojans, and stripped the armour from his shoulders. Then Patroclus sprang like Mars with fierce intent and a terrific shout upon the Trojans, and thrice did he kill 9 men. But as he was coming on like a god for a time, then, O Patroclus, was the hour of your end approaching, for Phoebus fought you in fell earnest. Patroclus did not see him as he moved about in the crush, for he was enshrouded in thick darkness, and the god struck him from behind on his back and his broad shoulders with the flat of his hand, so that his eyes turned dizzy. Phoebus, Apollo beat the helmet from off his head, and it rolled rattling off under the horse's feet, where its horsehair plumes were all begrimed with dust and blood. Never indeed had that helmet fared so before, for it had served to protect the head and comely forehead of the godlike hero Achilles. Now, however, Zeus delivered it over to be worn by Hector. Nevertheless, the end of Hector also was near. The bronze-shod spear, so great and so strong, was broken in the hand of Patroclus, while his shield that covered him from head to foot fell to the ground, as did also the band that held it. And Apollo undid the fastenings of his corselet. On this his mind became clouded, his limbs failed him, and he stood as one dazed, whereon Euphorbus, son of Pantaus, a Dardanian, the best spearman of his time, as also the finest horseman and fleetest runner, came behind him and struck him in the back with a spear, midway between the shoulders. This man, as soon as ever he had come up with his chariot, had dismounted 20 men. So proficient was he in all the arts of war. He it was, O knight Patroclus, that first drove a weapon into you, but he did not quite overpower you. Euphorbus then ran back into the crowd. After drawing his ashen spear out of the wound, he would not stand firm and wait for Patroclus, unarmed though he now was, to attack him. But Patroclus, unnerved, alike by the blow the god had given him and by the spear wound, drew back under cover of his men in fear for his life. Hector, on this, seeing him to be wounded and giving ground, forced his way through the ranks, and when close up with him, struck him in the lower part of the belly with a spear, driving the bronze point right through it, so that he fell heavily to the ground, to the great grief of the Achaeans, as when a lion has fought some fierce wild boar and worsted him. The two fight furiously upon the mountains over some little fountain at which they would both drink, and the lion has beaten the boar till he can hardly breathe. Even so did Hector, son of Priam, take the life of the brave son of Menoetius, who had killed so many, striking him from close at hand, and vaunting over him the while. "Patroclus," said he, "you deemed that you should sack our city, rob our Trojan women of their freedom, and carry them off in your ships to your own country. Fool, Hector and his fleet horses were ever straining their utmost to defend them. I am foremost of all the Trojan warriors to stave the day of bondage from off them. As for you, vultures shall devour you here. Poor wretch, Achilles with all his bravery availed you nothing. And yet I ween when you left him, he charged you straitly, saying, Come not back to the ships, knight Patroclus, till you have rent the blood-stained shirt of murderous Hector about his body. Thus I ween did he charge you, and your fool's heart answered him, yeas within you. Then, as the life ebbed out of you, you answered, O knight Patroclus, Hector, vaunt as you will, for Jove, the son of Saturn, and Apollo have vouchsafed you victory. It is they who have vanquished me so easily, and they who have stripped the armor from my shoulders. Had 20 such men as you attacked me, all of them would have fallen before my spear. Fate and the son of Leto have overpowered me, and among mortal men, Euphorbus, you are yourself third only in the killing of me. I say further, and lay my saying to your heart, you too shall live, but for a little season. Death and the day of your doom are close upon you, and they will lay you low by the hand of Achilles, son of Aeacus. When he had thus spoken, his eyes were closed in death. His soul left his body and flitted down to the house of Hades, mourning its sad fate and bidding farewell to the youth and vigour of its manhood. Dead though he was, Hector still spoke to him, saying, Patroclus, why should you thus foretell my doom? Who knows, but Achilles, son of lovely Thetis, may be smitten by my spear and die before me. As he spoke, he drew the bronze spear from the wound, planting his foot upon the body, which he thrust off and let lie on its back. He then went spear in hand after Automedon, squire of the fleet descendant of Aeacus, for he longed to lay him low. But the immortal steeds which the gods had given as a rich gift to Peleus bore him swiftly from the field. The fight around the body of Patroclus. Brave Menelaus, son of Atreus, now came to know that Patroclus had fallen, and made his way through the front ranks, clad in full armor, to bestride him. As a cow stands lowing over her first calf, even so did yellow-haired Menelaus bestride Patroclus. He held his round shield and his spear in front of him, resolute to kill any who should dare face him. But the son of Panthous had also noted the body, and came up to Menelaus, saying, Menelaus, son of Atreus, draw back, leave the body, and let the blood-stained spoils be. I was first of the Trojans and their brave allies to drive my spear into Patroclus. Let me, therefore, have my full glory among the Trojans, or I will take aim and kill you. To this Menelaus answered in great anger, By Father Jove, boasting is an ill thing. The pard is not more bold, nor the lion, nor savage wild boar, which is fiercest and most dauntless of all creatures, than are the proud sons of Panthous. Yet Hyperenor did not see out the days of his youth, when he made light of me and withstood me, deeming me the meanest soldier among the Danaans. His own feet never bore him back to gladden his wife and parents. Even so shall I make an end of you too, if you withstand me. Get you back into the crowd, and do not face me, or it shall be worse for you. Even a fool may be wise after the event. Euphorbus would not listen, and said, Now indeed, Menelaus, shall you pay for the death of my brother, over whom you vaunted, and whose wife you widowed in her bridal chamber, while you brought grief unspeakable on his parents? I shall comfort these poor people if I bring your head and armor and place them in the hands of Panthous and noble Phrontis. The time is come when this matter shall be fought out and settled, for me or against me. As he spoke, he struck Menelaus full on the shield, but the spear did not go through, for the shield turned its point. Menelaus then took aim, praying to Father Jove as he did so. Euphorbus was drawing back, And Menelaus struck him about the roots of his throat, leaning his whole weight on the spear so as to drive it home. The point went clean through his neck, and his armor rang, rattling round him as he fell heavily to the ground. His hair, which was like that of the Graces, and his locks, so deftly bound in bands of silver and gold, were all bedrabbled with blood, as one who has grown a fine young olive tree in a clear space where there is abundance of water. The plant is full of promise, and though the winds beat upon it from every quarter, it puts forth its white blossoms till the blasts of some fierce hurricane sweep down upon it and level it with the ground. Even so did Menelaus strip the fair youth Euphorbus of his armor after he had slain him. Or, as some fierce lion upon the mountains, in the pride of his strength, fastens on the finest heifer in a herd, as it is feeding. First he breaks her neck with his strong jaws, and then gorges on her blood and entrails. Dogs and shepherds raise a hue and cry against him, but they stand aloof and will not come close to him, for they are pale with fear. Even so, no one had the courage to face valiant Menelaus. The son of Atreus would have then carried off the armor of the son of Panthous with ease, had not Phoebus Apollo been angry, and in the guise of Mente's chief of the Cicons incited Hector to attack him. "Hector," said he, "you are now going after the horses of the noble son of Aeacus, but you will not take them. They cannot be kept in hand and driven by mortal man, save only by Achilles, who is son to an immortal mother. Meanwhile, Menelaus, son of Atreus, has bestridden the body of Patroclus and killed the noblest of the Trojans, Euphorbus, son of Panthous, so that he can fight no more." The god then went back into the toil and turmoil, but the soul of Hector was darkened with a cloud of grief. He looked along the ranks and saw Euphorbus lying on the ground with the blood still flowing from his wound, and Menelaus stripping him of his armor. On this he made his way to the front like a flame of fire, clad in his gleaming armor and crying with a loud voice. When the son of Atreus heard him, he said to himself in his dismay, "Alas, what shall I do? I may not let the Trojans take the armor of Patroclus, who has fallen fighting on my behalf, lest some Danaan who sees me should cry shame upon me. Still, if for my honour's sake I fight Hector and the Trojans single-handed, they will prove too many for me, for Hector is bringing them up in force. Why, however, should I thus hesitate? When a man fights in, despite of heaven, with one whom a god befriends, he will soon rue it. Let no Danaan think ill of me if I give place to Hector, for the hand of heaven is with him. Yet, if I could find Ajax, the two of us would fight Hector and heaven too, if we might only save the body of Patroclus for Achilles, son of Peleus. This, of many evils, would be the least." While he was thus in two minds, the Trojans came up to him with Hector at their head. He therefore drew back and left the body, turning about like some bearded lion who is being chased by dogs and men from a stockyard with spears and hue and cry, whereon he is daunted and slinks sulkily off. Even so did Menelaus, son of Atreus, turn and leave the body of Patroclus. When among the body of his men, he looked around for mighty Ajax, son of Telamon, and presently saw him on the extreme left of the fight, cheering on his men and exhorting them to keep on fighting, for Phoebus Apollo had spread a great panic among them. He ran up to him and said, "Ajax, my good friend, come with me at once to dead Patroclus, if so be that we may take the body to Achilles. As for his armor, Hector already has it." These words stirred the heart of Ajax, and he made his way among the front ranks, Menelaus going with him. Hector had stripped Patroclus of his armor, and was dragging him away to cut off his head and take the body to fling before the dogs of Troy. But Ajax came up with his shield-like wall before him, on which Hector withdrew under shelter of his men, and sprang on to his chariot, giving the armor over to the Trojans to take to the city, as a great trophy for himself. Ajax, therefore, covered the body of Patroclus with his broad shield and bestrode him. As a lion stands over his whelps if hunters have come upon him in a forest when he is with his little ones. In the pride and fierceness of his strength he draws his knit brows down till they cover his eyes. Even so did Ajax bestride the body of Patroclus, and by his side stood Menelaus, son of Atreus, nursing great sorrow in his heart. Then Glaucus, son of Hippolochus, looked fiercely at Hector and rebuked him sternly. "Hector," said he, "you make a brave show, but in fight you are sadly wanting. A runaway like yourself has no claim to so great a reputation. Think how you may now save your town and citadel by the hands of your own people born in Ilios, for you will get no Lycians to fight for you, seeing what thanks they have had for their incessant hardships. Are you likely, sir, to do anything to help a man of less note after leaving Sarpedon, who was at once your guest and comrade in arms, to be the spoil and prey of the Danaans? So long as he lived, he did good service both to your city and yourself. Yet you had no stomach to save his body from the dogs. If the Lycians will listen to me, they will go home and leave Troy to its fate. If the Trojans had any of that daring, fearless spirit which lays hold of men who are fighting for their country and harassing those who would attack it, we should soon bear off Patroclus into Ilios. Could we get this dead man away and bring him into the city of Priam, the Argives would readily give up the armor of Sarpedon, and we should get his body to boot. For he whose squire has been now killed is the foremost man at the ships of the Achaeans, he and his close fighting followers. Nevertheless, you dared not make a stand against Ajax, nor face him eye to eye, with battle all round you, for he is a braver man than you are." Hector scowled at him and answered, "Glaucus, you should know better. I have held you so far as a man of more understanding than any in all Lycia, but now I despise you for saying that I am afraid of Ajax. I fear neither battle nor the din of chariots, but Jove's will is stronger than ours. Jove at one time makes even a strong man draw back and snatch his victory from his grasp, while at another he will set him on to fight. Come hither then, my friend, stand by me, and see indeed whether I shall play the coward the whole day through, as you say, or whether I shall not stay some even of the boldest Danaans from fighting round the body of Patroclus." As he spoke, he called loudly on the Trojans, saying, "Trojans, Lycians, and Dardanians, fighters in close combat, be men, my friends, and fight might and main, while I put on the goodly armor of Achilles, which I took when I killed Patroclus." With this, Hector left the fight, and ran full speed after his men who were taking the armor of Achilles to Troy, but had not yet got far. Standing for a while apart from the woeful fight, he changed his armor. His own he sent to the strong city of Ilios and to the Trojans, while he put on the immortal armor of the son of Peleus, which the gods had given to Peleus, who in his age gave it to his son, but the son did not grow old in his father's armor. When Jove, lord of the storm cloud, saw Hector standing aloof and arming himself in the armor of the son of Peleus, he wagged his head and muttered to himself, saying, "Hey, poor wretch, you arm in the armor of a hero, before whom many another trembles, and you reck nothing of the doom that is already close upon you. You have killed his comrade, so brave and strong, but it was not well that you should strip the armor from his head and shoulders. I do indeed endow you with great might now, but as against this you shall not return from battle to lay the armor of the son of Peleus before Andromache." The son of Saturn bowed his portentous brows, and Hector fitted the armor to his body, while terrible Mars entered into him and filled his whole body with might and valor. With a shout he strode in among the allies, and his armour flashed about him so that he seemed to all of them like the great son of Peleus himself. He went about among them and cheered them on. Methles, Glaucus, Medon, Thesilicus, Asteropaeus, Diasenor, and Hippothous, Phorcys, Chromius, and Ennomus the augur. All these did he exhort, saying, Hear me, allies from other cities who are here in your thousands. It was not in order to have a crowd about me that I called you hither each from his several city, but that with heart and soul you might defend the wives and little ones of the Trojans from the fierce Achaeans. For this do I oppress my people with your food and the presents that make you rich. Therefore turn and charge at the foe. To stand or fall, as is the game of war, whoever shall bring Patroclus, dead though he be, into the hands of the Trojans, and shall make Ajax give way before him, I will give him 1/2 of the spoils, while I keep the other. He will thus share like honour with myself. When he had thus spoken, they charged full weight upon the Danaans, with their spears held out before them. And the hopes of each ran high, that he should force Ajax son of Telamon to yield up the body. Fools that they were, for he was about to take the lives of many. Then Ajax said to Menelaus, My good friend Menelaus, you and I shall hardly come out of this fight alive. I am less concerned for the body of Patroclus, who will shortly become meat for the dogs and vultures of Troy, than for the safety of my own head and yours. Hector has wrapped us round in a storm of battle from every quarter, and our destruction seems now certain. Call, then, upon the princes of the Danaans, if there is any who can hear us. Menelaus did as he said, and shouted to the Danaans for help at the top of his voice. My friends, he cried, princes and counsellors of the Argives, all you who with Agamemnon and Menelaus drink at the public cost, and give orders each to his own people, as Jove vouchsafes him power and glory. The fight is so thick about me that I cannot distinguish you severally. Come on, therefore, every man unbidden, and think it shame that Patroclus should become meat and morsel for Trojan hounds. Fleet Ajax, son of Oileus, heard him, and was first to force his way through the fight and run to help him. Next came Idomeneus and Meriones, his esquire, peer of murderous Mars. As for the others that came into the fight after these, who of his own self could name them? The Trojans, with Hector at their head, charged in a body. As a great wave that comes thundering in at the mouth of some heaven-born river, and the rocks that jut into the sea ring with the roar of the breakers that beat and buffet them. Even with such a roar did the Trojans come on, but the Achaeans in singleness of heart stood firm about the son of Menoetius, and fenced him with their bronze shields. Jove, moreover, hid the brightness of their helmets in a thick cloud, for he had borne no grudge against the son of Menoetius while he was still alive, and squire to the descendant of Iacchus. Therefore he was loth to let him fall a prey to the dogs of his foes, the Trojans, and urged his comrades on to defend him. At first the Trojans drove the Achaeans back, and they withdrew from the dead man daunted. The Trojans did not succeed in killing anyone, nevertheless they drew the body away. But the Achaeans did not lose it long, for Ajax, foremost of all the Danaans, after the son of Peleus alike, in stature and prowess, quickly rallied them, and made towards the front like a wild boar upon the mountains, when he stands at bay in the forest glades, and routs the hounds and lusty youths that have attacked him. Even so did Ajax son of Telamon, passing easily in among the phalanxes of the Trojans, disperse those who had bestridden Patroclus, and were most bent on winning glory by dragging him off to their city. At this moment Hippothous, brave son of the Pelasgian Lethus, in his zeal for Hector and the Trojans, was dragging the body off by the foot through the press of the fight, having bound a strap round the sinews near the ankle. But a mischief soon befell him, from which none of those could save him who would have gladly done so. For the son of Telamon sprang forward and smote him on his bronze-cheeked helmet. The pruned headpiece broke about the point of the weapon, struck at once by the spear and by the strong hand of Ajax, so that the bloody brain came oozing out through the crest socket. His strength then failed him, and he let Patroclus' foot drop from his hand as he fell full length dead upon the body. Thus he died far from the fertile land of Larissa, and never repaid his parents the cost of bringing him up, for his life was cut short early by the spear of mighty Ajax. Hector then took aim at Ajax with a spear, but he saw it coming and just managed to avoid it. The spear passed on and struck Schedius, son of noble Iphitus, captain of the Phocians, who dwelt in famed Panopeus and reigned over much people. It struck him under the middle of the collarbone. The bronze point went right through him, coming out at the bottom of his shoulder blade, and his armor rang rattling round him as he fell heavily to the ground. Ajax, in his turn, struck noble Phorcys, son of Phenops, in the middle of the belly as he was bestriding Hippothoos, and broke the plate of his cuirass, whereon the spear tore out his entrails, and he clutched the ground in his palm as he fell to earth. Hector and those who were in the front rank then gave ground, while the Argives raised a loud cry of triumph and drew off the bodies of Phorcys and Hippothoos, which they stripped presently of their armor. The Trojans would now have been worsted by the brave Achaeans and driven back to Ilius through their own cowardice, while the Argives, so great was their courage and endurance, would have achieved a triumph even against the will of Jove, if Apollo had not roused Aeneas, in the likeness of Periphas, son of Epitus, an attendant who had grown old in the service of Aeneas's aged father, and was at all times devoted to him. In his likeness, then, Apollo said, "Aeneas, can you not manage, even though heaven be against us, to save high Ilius? I have known men whose numbers, courage, and self-reliance have saved their people in spite of Jove, whereas in this case he would much rather give victory to us than to the Danaans, if you would only fight instead of being so terribly afraid." Aeneas knew Apollo when he looked straight at him, and shouted to Hector, saying, "Hector and all other Trojans and allies, shame on us if we are beaten by the Achaeans and driven back to Ilius through our own cowardice. A god has just come up to me and told me that Jove, the supreme disposer, will be with us. Therefore let us make for the Danaans, that it may go hard with them ere they bear away dead Patroclus to the ships." As he spoke, he sprang out far in front of the others, who then rallied and again faced the Achaeans. Aeneas speared Leocritus, son of Arisbas, a valiant follower of Lycomedes, and Lycomedes was moved with pity as he saw him fall. He therefore went close up and speared Apicion, son of Hippasus, shepherd of his people, in the liver under the midriff, so that he died. He had come from fertile Paeonia, and was the best man of them all after Asteropaeus. Asteropaeus flew forward to avenge him and attack the Danaans, but this might no longer be, inasmuch as those about Patroclus were well covered by their shields and held their spears in front of them. For Ajax had given them strict orders that no man was either to give ground or to stand out before the others, but all were to hold well together about the body and fight hand to hand. Thus did huge Ajax bid them, and the earth ran red with blood as the corpses fell thick on one another, alike on the side of the Trojans and allies, and on that of the Danaans. For these last too fought no bloodless fight, though many fewer of them perished, through the care they took to defend and stand by one another. Thus did they fight as it were a flaming fire. It seemed as though it had gone hard even with the sun and moon, for they were hidden, over all that part where the bravest heroes were fighting about the dead son of Menoetius, whereas the other Danaans and Achaeans fought at their ease in full daylight with brilliant sunshine all round them, and there was not a cloud to be seen neither on plain nor mountain. These last, moreover, would rest for a while and leave off fighting, for they were some distance apart and beyond the range of one another's weapons, whereas those who were in the thick of the fray suffered both from battle and darkness. All the best of them were being worn out by the great weight of their armor, but the two valiant heroes, Thrasymedes and Antilochus, had not yet heard of the death of Patroclus, and believed him to be still alive and leading the van against the Trojans. They were keeping themselves in reserve against the death or rout of their own comrades, for so Nestor had ordered when he sent them from the ships into battle. Thus through the livelong day did they wage fierce war, and the sweat of their toil rained ever on their legs under them, and on their hands and eyes, as they fought over the squire of the fleet son of Peleus. It was as when a man gives a great ox hide all drenched in fat to his men, and bids them stretch it, whereon they stand round it in a ring and tug till the moisture leaves it, and the fat soaks in for the many that pull at it, and it is well stretched. Even so did the two sides tug the dead body hither and thither within the compass of but a little space. The Trojans steadfastly set on dragging it into Ilius, while the Achaeans were no less so on taking it to their ships, and fierce was the fight between them. Not Mars himself, the Lord of hosts, nor yet Minerva, even in their fullest fury, could make light of such a battle. Such fearful turmoil of men and horses did Jove on that day ordain round the body of Patroclus. Meanwhile Achilles did not know that he had fallen, for the fight was under the wall of Troy, a long way off the ships. He had no idea, therefore, that Patroclus was dead, and deemed that he would return alive as soon as he had gone close up to the gates. He knew that he was not to sack the city, neither with nor without himself, for his mother had often told him this when he had sat alone with her, and she had informed him of the counsels of great Jove. Now, however, she had not told him how great a disaster had befallen him in the death of the one who was far dearest to him of all his comrades. The others still kept on charging one another round the body with their pointed spears and killing each other. Then would one say, "My friends, we can never again show our faces at the ships. Better, and greatly better, that earth should open and swallow us here in this place, than that we should let the Trojans have the triumph of bearing off Patroclus to their city." The Trojans also, on their part, spoke to one another, saying, "Friends, though we fall to a man beside this body, let none shrink from fighting." With such words did they exhort each other. They fought, and an iron clank rose through the void air to the brazen vault of heaven. The horses of the descendant of Aeacus stood out of the fight and wept when they heard that their driver had been laid low by the hand of murderous Hector. Automedon, valiant son of Diores, lashed them again and again. Many a time did he speak kindly to them, and many a time did he upbraid them. But they would neither go back to the ships by the waters of the broad Hellespont, nor yet into battle among the Achaeans. They stood with their chariot stock still, as a pillar set over the tomb of some dead man or woman, and bowed their heads to the ground. Hot tears fell from their eyes as they mourned the loss of their charioteer, and their noble manes drooped all wet from under the yoke straps on either side. The yoke. The son of Saturn saw them and took pity upon their sorrow. He wagged his head and muttered to himself, saying, "Poor things! Why did we give you to King Peleus, who is immortal, while you are yourselves ageless and immortal? Was it that you might share the sorrows that befall mankind? For of all creatures that live and move upon the earth, there is none so pitiable as he is. Still, Hector, son of Priam, shall drive neither you nor your chariot. I will not have it." It is enough that he should have the armor over which he vaunts so vainly. Furthermore, I will give you strength of heart and limb to bear Automedon safely to the ships from battle, for I shall let the Trojans triumph still further, and go on killing till they reach the ships, whereon night shall fall and darkness overshadow the land." As he spoke, he breathed heart and strength into the horses, so that they shook the dust from out of their manes and bore their chariots swiftly into the fight that raged between Trojans and Achaeans. Behind them fought Automedon, full of sorrow for his comrade, as a vulture amid a flock of geese. In and out, and here and there, full speed, he dashed amid the throng of the Trojans. But for all the fury of his pursuit, he killed no man, for he could not wield his spear and keep his horses in hand when alone in the chariot. At last, however, a comrade, Alcimedon, son of Laerces, son of Haemon, caught sight of him and came up behind his chariot. "Automedon," said he, "what god has put this folly into your heart and robbed you of your right mind, that you fight the Trojans in the front rank single-handed? He who was your comrade is slain, and Hector plumes himself on being armed in the armor of the descendant of Aeacus." Automedon, son of Diores, answered, "Alcimedon, there is no one else who can control and guide the immortal steeds so well as you can, save only Patroclus, while he was alive. Peer of gods in council, take then the whip and reins, while I go down from the car and fight." Alcimedon sprang onto the chariot and caught up the whip and reins, while Automedon leaped from off the car. When Hector saw him, he said to Aeneas, who was near him, "Aeneas, counsellor of the mail-clad Trojans, I see the steeds of the fleet son of Aeacus come into battle with weak hands to drive them. I am sure, if you think well that we might take them, they will not dare face us if we both attack them." The valiant son of Anchises was of the same mind, and the pair went right on, with their shoulders covered under shields of tough dry ox-hide, overlaid with much bronze. Chromius and Aretus went also with them, and their hearts beat high with hope that they might kill the men and capture the horses. Fools that they were, for they were not to return scatheless from their meeting with Automedon, who prayed to Father Jove, and was forthwith filled with courage and strength abounding. He turned to his trusty comrade Alcimedon and said, "Alcimedon, keep your horses so close up that I may feel their breath upon my back. I doubt that we shall not stay Hector, son of Priam, till he has killed us and mounted behind the horses. He will then either spread panic among the ranks of the Achaeans, or himself be killed among the foremost." On this he cried out to the two Ajaxes and Menelaus, "Ajaxes, captains of the Argives, and Menelaus, give the dead body over to them that are best able to defend it, and come to the rescue of us living. For Hector and Aeneas, who are the two best men among the Trojans, are pressing us hard in the full tide of war. Nevertheless, the issue lies on the lap of heaven. I will therefore hurl my spear and leave the rest to Jove." He poised and hurled as he spoke, whereon the spear struck the round shield of Aretus, and went right through it, for the shield stayed it not, so that it was driven through his belt into the lower part of his belly. As when some sturdy youth, axe in hand, deals his blow behind the horns of an ox, and severs the tendons at the back of its neck, so that it springs forward and then drops. Even so did Aretus give one bound, and then fall on his back, the spear quivering in his body till it made an end of him. Hector then aimed a spear at Automedon, but he saw it coming and stooped forward to avoid it, so that it flew past him, and the point stuck in the ground, while the butt end went on quivering till Mars robbed it of its force. They would then have fought hand to hand with swords, had not the two Ajaxes forced their way through the crowd when they heard their comrade calling, and parted them for all their fury. For Hector, Aeneas, and Chromius were afraid and drew back, leaving Aretus to lie there struck to the heart. Automedon, peer of fleet Mars, then stripped him of his armour, and vaunted over him, saying, I have done little to assuage my sorrow for the son of Menoetius, for the man I have killed is not so good as he was. As he spoke, he took the blood-stained spoils and laid them upon his chariot. Then he mounted the car with his hands and feet all steeped in gore as a lion that has been gorging upon a bull. And now the fierce groanful fight again raged about Patroclus, for Minerva came down from heaven and roused its fury by the command of far-seeing Jove, who had changed his mind and sent her to encourage the Danaans, as when Jove bends his bright bow in heaven in token to mankind either of war or of the chill storms that stay men from their labour and plague the flocks. Even so, wrapped in such radiant raiment, did Minerva go in among the host and speak man by man to each. First she took the form and voice of Phoenix and spoke to Menelaus, son of Atreus, who was standing near her. Menelaus, said she, it will be shame and dishonour to you if dogs tear the noble comrade of Achilles under the walls of Troy. Therefore be staunch, and urge your men to be so also. Menelaus answered, Phoenix, my good old friend, may Minerva vouchsafe me strength, and keep the darts from off me, for so shall I stand by Patroclus and defend him. His death has gone to my heart, but Hector is as a raging fire, and deals his blows without ceasing, for Jove is now granting him a time of triumph. Minerva was pleased at his having named herself before any of the other gods. Therefore she put strength into his knees and shoulders, and made him as bold as a fly, which, though driven off, will yet come again and bite if it can, so dearly does it love man's blood. Even so bold as this did she make him, as he stood over Patroclus and threw his spear. Now there was among the Trojans a man named Podes, son of Aetion, who was both rich and valiant. Hector held him in the highest honour, for he was his comrade and boon companion. The spear of Menelaus struck this man in the girdle, just as he had turned in flight, and went right through him, whereon he fell heavily forward. And Menelaus, son of Atreus, drew off his body from the Trojans into the ranks of his own people. Apollo then went up to Hector and spurred him on to fight, in the likeness of Phaenops, son of Asius, who lived in Abydos, and was the most favoured of all Hector's guests. In his likeness Apollo said, Hector, who of the Achaeans will fear you henceforward, now that you have quailed before Menelaus, who has ever been rated poorly as a soldier? Yet he has now got a corpse away from the Trojans single-handed, and has slain your own true comrade, a man brave among the foremost, Podes, son of Aetion. A dark cloud of grief fell upon Hector as he heard, and he made his way to the front, clad in full armour. Thereon the son of Saturn seized his bright tasselled aegis, and veiled Ida in cloud. He sent forth his lightnings and his thunders. And as he shook his aegis, he gave victory to the Trojans and routed the Achaeans. The panic was begun by Peneleos the Boeotian, for while keeping his face turned ever towards the foe, he had been hit with a spear on the upper part of the shoulder. A spear thrown by Polydamas had grazed the top of the bone, for Polydamas had come up to him and struck him from close at hand. Then Hector, in close combat, struck Letus, son of noble Electryon, in the hand by the wrist, and disabled him from fighting further. He looked about him in dismay, knowing that never again should he wield spear in battle with the Trojans. While Hector was in pursuit of Letus, Idomeneus struck him on the breastplate over his chest near the nipple, but the spear broke in the shaft, and the Trojans cheered aloud. Hector then aimed at Idomeneus, son of Deucalion, as he was standing on his chariot, and very narrowly missed him. but the spear hit Quirinus, a follower and charioteer of Meriones, who had come with him from Lyctus. Idomeneus had left the ships on foot, and would have afforded a great triumph to the Trojans, if Quirinus had not driven quickly up to him. He therefore brought life and rescue to Idomeneus, but himself fell by the hand of murderous Hector. For Hector hit him on the jaw under the ear. The end of the spear drove out his teeth and cut his tongue in 2 pieces, so that he fell from his chariot and let the reins fall to the ground. Meriones gathered them up from the ground and took them into his own hands. Then he said to Idomeneus, "Lay on till you get back to the ships, for you must see that the day is no longer ours." On this, Idomeneus lashed the horses to the ships, for fear had taken hold upon him. Ajax and Menelaus noted how Jove had turned the scale in favor of the Trojans, and Ajax was first to speak. "Alas," said he, "even a fool may see that Father Jove is helping the Trojans. All their weapons strike home, no matter whether it be a brave man or a coward that hurls them. Jove speeds all alike, whereas ours fall each one of them without effect. What, then, will be best both as regards rescuing the body and our return to the joy of our friends, who will be grieving as they look hitherwards, for they will make sure that nothing can now check the terrible hands of Hector, and that he will fling himself upon our ships. I wish that someone would go and tell the son of Peleus at once, for I do not think he can have yet heard the sad news that the dearest of his friends has fallen. But I can see not a man among the Achaeans to send, for they and their chariots are alike hidden in darkness. O Father Jove, lift this cloud from over the sons of the Achaeans, make heaven serene, and let us see, if you will, that we perish. Let us fall at any rate by daylight." Father Jove heard him, and had compassion upon his tears. Forthwith he chased away the cloud of darkness, so that the sun shone out, and all the fighting was revealed. Ajax then said to Menelaus, "Look, Menelaus, and if Antilochus son of Nestor be still living, send him at once to tell Achilles that by far the dearest to him of all his comrades has fallen." Menelaus heeded his words and went his way as a lion from a stockyard. The lion is tired of attacking the men and hounds, who keep watch the whole night through, and will not let him feast on the fat of their herd. In his lust of meat he makes straight at them, but in vain, for darts from strong hands assail him, and burning brands which daunt him for all his hunger. So, in the morning he slinks sulkily away. Even so did Menelaus sorely against his will leave Patroclus in great fear lest the Achaeans should be driven back in rout and let him fall into the hands of the foe. He charged Meriones and the 2 Ajaxes straightly, saying, "Ajaxes and Meriones, leaders of the Argives, now indeed remember how good Patroclus was. He was ever courteous while alive. Bear it in mind now that he is dead." With this Menelaus left them, looking round him as keenly as an eagle, whose sight, they say, is keener than that of any other bird. However high he may be in the heavens, not a hare that runs can escape him by crouching under bush or thicket, for he will swoop down upon it and make an end of it. Even so, O Menelaus, did your keen eyes range round the mighty host of your followers to see if you could find the son of Nestor still alive. Presently Menelaus saw him on the extreme left of the battle, cheering on his men and exhorting them to fight boldly. Menelaus went up to him and said, "Antilochus, come here, and listen to sad news, which I would indeed were untrue. You must see with your own eyes that heaven is heaping calamity upon the Danaans, and giving victory to the Trojans. Patroclus has fallen, who was the bravest of the Achaeans, and sorely will the Danaans miss him. Run instantly to the ships and tell Achilles that he may come to rescue the body and bear it to the ships. As for the armor, Hector already has it." Antilochus was struck with horror. For a long time he was speechless, his eyes filled with tears, and he could find no utterance. But he did as Menelaus had said, and set off running as soon as he had given his armor to a comrade, Laodocus, who was wheeling his horses round close beside him. Thus, then, did he run weeping from the field to carry the bad news to Achilles, son of Peleus? Nor were you, O Menelaus, minded to succour his harassed comrades when Antilochus had left the Pylians, and greatly did they miss him. But he sent them noble Thrasymedes, and himself went back to Patroclus. He came running up to the two Ajaxes and said, "I have sent Antilochus to the ships to tell Achilles, but rage against Hector as he may, he cannot come, for he cannot fight without armor. What then will be our best plan, both as regards rescuing the dead and our own escape from death amid the battle cries of the Trojans?" Ajax answered, "Menelaus, you have said, 'Well, do you then?' And Meriones stoop down, raise the body, and bear it out of the fray, while we two behind you keep off Hector and the Trojans, one in heart as in name, and long used to fighting side by side with one another." On this, Menelaus and Meriones took the dead man in their arms and lifted him high aloft with a great effort. The Trojan host raised a hue and cry behind them when they saw the Achaeans bearing the body away, and flew after them like hounds attacking a wounded boar at the loo of a band of young huntsmen. For a while the hounds fly at him as though they would tear him in pieces, but now and again he turns on them in a fury, scaring and scattering them in all directions. Even so did the Trojans for a while charge in a body, striking with sword and with spears pointed at both the ends. But when the two Ajaxes faced them and stood at bay, they would turn pale, and no man dared press on to fight further about the dead. In this wise did the two heroes strain every nerve to bear the body to the ships out of the fight. The battle raged round them like fierce flames that, when once kindled, spread like wildfire over a city, and the houses fall in the glare of its burning. Even such was the roar and tramp of men and horses that pursued them as they bore Patroclus from the field, or as mules that put forth all their strength to draw some beam or great piece of ship's timber down a rough mountain track, and they pant and sweat as they go. Even so did Menelaus and Meriones pant and sweat as they bore the body of Patroclus. Behind them the two Ajaxes held stoutly out, as some wooded mountain spur that stretches across a plain will turn water and check the flow even of a great river. Nor is there any stream strong enough to break through it. Even so did the two Ajaxes face the Trojans and stem the tide of their fighting, though they kept pouring on towards them, and foremost among them all was Aeneas, son of Anchises, with valiant Hector. As a flock of daws or starlings fall to screaming and chattering when they see a falcon, foe to all small birds, come soaring near them, even so did the Achaean youth raise a babel of cries as they fled before Aeneas and Hector, unmindful of their former prowess. In the rout of the Danaans much goodly armour fell round about the trench, and of fighting there was no end. The grief of Achilles over Patroclus, the visit of Thetis to Vulcan, and the armour that he made for Achilles, thus then did they fight, as it were, a flaming fire. Meanwhile, the fleet runner Antilochus, who had been sent as messenger, reached Achilles, and found him sitting by his tall ships, and boding that which was indeed too surely true. "Alas," said he to himself in the heaviness of his heart, "why are the Achaeans again scouring the plain and flocking towards the ships? Heaven grant the gods be not now bringing that sorrow upon me of which my mother Thetis spoke, saying that while I was yet alive the bravest of the Myrmidons should fall before the Trojans, and see the light of the sun no longer. I fear the brave son of Menoetius has fallen through his own daring, and yet I bade him return to the ships as soon as he had driven back those that were, bringing fire against them, and not join battle with Hector. As he was thus pondering, the son of Nestor came up to him and told his sad tale, weeping bitterly the while. "Alas," he cried, "son of noble Peleus, I bring you bad tidings. Would indeed that they were untrue. Patroclus has fallen, and a fight is raging about his naked body. For Hector holds his armor." A dark cloud of grief fell upon Achilles as he listened. He filled both hands with dust from off the ground and poured it over his head, disfiguring his comely face and letting the refuse settle over his shirt so fair and new. He flung himself down all huge and hugely at full length, and tore his hair with his hands. The bondswomen whom Achilles and Patroclus had taken captive screamed aloud for grief, beating their breasts, and with their limbs failing them for sorrow. Antilochus bent over him the while, weeping and holding both his hands as he lay groaning, for he feared that he might plunge a knife into his own throat. Then Achilles gave a loud cry, and his mother heard him, as she was sitting in the depths of the sea by the old man, her father, whereon she screamed, and all the goddesses, daughters of Nereus that dwelt at the bottom of the sea, came gathering round her. There were Glos, Thalia, and Cymodocea, Nesaea, Spio, Tho, and dark-eyed Hale, Cymothoe, Actaea and Limnoria, Melite, Iara, Amphithoe and Agave, Doto and Proto, Pharusa and Dynamene, Texamene, Amphinome and Calianera, Doris, Panope and the famous sea nymph Galatea, Nemertes, Absudes and Calianassa. There were also Clymene, Ionera and Ionassa, Myra, Orithua and Amathea of the lovely locks, with other Nereids who dwell in the depths of the sea. The crystal cave was filled with their multitude, and they all beat their breasts, while Thetis led them in their lament. "Listen," she cried, "sisters, daughters of Nereus, that you may hear the burden of my sorrows. Alas, woe is me, woe in that I have borne the most glorious of offspring. I bore him fair and strong, hero among heroes, and he shot up as a sapling. I tended him as a plant in a goodly garden, and sent him with his ships to Iliad to fight the Trojans. But never shall I welcome him back to the house of Peleus. So long as he lives to look upon the light of the sun, he is in heaviness, and though I go to him, I cannot help him. Nevertheless, I will go, that I may see my dear son, and learn what sorrow has befallen him, though he is still holding aloof from battle." She left the cave as she spoke, while the others followed weeping after, and the waves opened a path before them. When they reached the rich plain of Troy, they came up out of the sea in a long line onto the sands, at the place where the ships of the Myrmidons were drawn up in close order round the tents of Achilles. His mother went up to him as he lay groaning. She laid her hand upon his head and spoke piteously, saying, "My son, why are you thus weeping? What sorrow has now befallen you? Tell me. Hide it, not from me. Surely Jove has granted you the prayer you made him when you lifted up your hands and besought him that the Achaeans might all of them be pent up at their ships, and rued bitterly in that you were no longer with them." Achilles groaned and answered, "Mother, Olympian Jove has indeed vouchsafed me the fulfillment of my prayer, but what boots it to me, seeing that my dear comrade Patroclus has fallen, he whom I valued more than all others, and loved as dearly as my own life. I have lost him, I, and Hector, when he had killed him, stripped the wondrous armor, so glorious to behold, which the gods gave to Peleus when they laid you in the couch of a mortal man. Would that you were still dwelling among the immortal sea nymphs, and that Peleus had taken to himself some mortal bride. For now you shall have grief infinite by reason of the death of that son whom you can never welcome home. Nay, I will not live, nor go about among mankind, unless Hector fall by my spear, and thus pay me for having slain Patroclus, son of Menoetius." Thetis wept and answered, "Then, my son, is your end near at hand? For your own death awaits you full, soon after that of Hector." Then said Achilles in his great grief, "I would die here and now, in that I could not save my comrade. He has fallen far from home, and in his hour of need my hand was not there to help him. What is there for me? Return to my own land I shall not, and I have brought no saving neither to Patroclus nor to my other comrades, of whom so many have been slain by mighty Hector. I stay here by my ships, a bootless burden upon the earth. I, who in fight have no peer among the Achaeans, though in council there are better than I. Therefore perish strife both from among gods and men, and anger wherein even a righteous man will harden his heart, which rises up in the soul of a man like smoke, and the taste thereof is sweeter than drops of honey. Even so has Agamemnon angered me. And yet, so be it, for it is over. I will force my soul into subjection, as I needs must. I will go, I will pursue Hector, who has slain him whom I loved so dearly, and will then abide my doom when it may please Jove and the other gods to send it. Even Hercules, the best beloved of Jove, even he could not escape the hand of death, but fate and Juno's fierce anger laid him low, as I too shall lie when I am dead, if a like doom awaits me. Till then I will win fame, and will bid Trojan and Dardanian women wring tears from their tender cheeks with both their hands in the grievousness of their great sorrow. Thus shall they know that he who has held aloof so long will hold aloof no longer. Hold me not back, therefore, in the love you bear me, for you shall not move me." Then silver-footed Thetis answered, "My son, what you have said is true. It is well to save your comrades from destruction, but your armor is in the hands of the Trojans. Hector bears it in triumph upon his own shoulders. Full well I know that his vaunt shall not be lasting, for his end is close at hand. Go not, however, into the press of battle, till you see me return hither. Tomorrow at break of day I shall be here, and will bring you goodly armor from King Vulcan." On this she left her brave son, and as she turned away she said to the sea nymphs, her sisters, "Dive into the bosom of the sea, and go to the house of the old sea god my father. Tell him everything. As for me, I will go to the cunning workman Vulcan on high Olympus, and ask him to provide my son with a suit of splendid armor." When she had so said, they dived forthwith beneath the waves, while silver-footed Thetis went her way, that she might bring the armor for her son. Thus, then, did her feet bear the goddess to Olympus, and meanwhile the Achaeans were flying with loud cries before murderous Hector, till they reached the ships and the Hellespont, and they could not draw the body of Mars's servant Patroclus out of reach of the weapons that were showered upon him, for Hector, son of Priam, with his host and horsemen, had again caught up to him like the flame of a fiery furnace. Thrice did brave Hector seize him by the feet, striving with might and main to draw him away, and calling loudly on the Trojans. And thrice did the two Ajaxes, clothed in valor as with a garment, beat him from off the body. But all undaunted he would now charge into the thick of the fight, and now again he would stand still and cry aloud, but he would give no ground. As upland shepherds that cannot chase some famished lion from a carcass, even so could not the two Ajaxes scare Hector, son of Priam, from the body of Patroclus. And now he would even have dragged it off and have won imperishable glory. Had not Iris fleet as the wind, winged her way as messenger from Olympus to the son of Peleus, and bidden him arm. She came secretly without the knowledge of Jove and of the other gods, for Juno sent her. And when she had got close to him, she said, "Up, son of Peleus, mightiest of all mankind, rescue Patroclus, about whom this fearful fight is now raging by the ships. Men are killing one another, the Danaans in defense of the dead body, while the Trojans are trying to hale it away and take it to windy Ilios. Hector is the most furious of them all. He is for cutting the head from the body and fixing it on the stakes of the wall. Up then, and bide here no longer. Shrink from the thought that Patroclus may become meat for the dogs of Troy. Shame on you, should his body suffer any kind of outrage." And Achilles said, "Iris, which of the gods was it that sent you to me?" Iris answered, "It was Juno, the royal spouse of Jove, but the son of Saturn does not know of my coming, nor yet does any other of the immortals who dwell on the snowy summits of Olympus." Then fleet Achilles answered her, saying, "How can I go up into the battle? They have my armor. My mother forbade me to arm till I should see her come, for she promised to bring me goodly armor from Vulcan. I know no man whose arms I can put on, save only the shield of Ajax son of Telamon, and he surely must be fighting in the front rank and wielding his spear about the body of dead Patroclus." Iris said, "We know that your armor has been taken, but go as you are. Go to the deep trench and show yourself before the Trojans, that they may fear you and cease fighting. Thus will the fainting sons of the Achaeans gain some brief breathing time, which in battle may hardly be." Iris left him when she had so spoken. But Achilles, dear to Jove, arose, and Minerva flung her tasselled aegis round his strong shoulders. She crowned his head with a halo of golden cloud, from which she kindled a glow of gleaming fire, as the smoke that goes up into heaven from some city that is being beleaguered on an island far out at sea. All day long do men sally from the city and fight their hardest, and at the going down of the sun the line of beacon fires blazes forth, flaring high for those that dwell near them to behold, if so be that they may come with their ships and succour them. Even so did the light flare from the head of Achilles as he stood by the trench, going beyond the wall. But he did not join the Achaeans, for he heeded the charge which his mother laid upon him. There did he stand and shout aloud. Minerva also raised her voice from afar, and spread terror unspeakable among the Trojans, ringing as the note of a trumpet that sounds alarm. Then the foe is at the gates of a city. Even so brazen was the voice of the son of Aeacus, and when the Trojans heard its clarion tones, they were dismayed. The horses turned back with their chariots, for they boded mischief, and their drivers were awestruck by the steady flame which the grey-eyed goddess had kindled above the head of the great son of Peleus. Thrice did Achilles raise his loud cry as he stood by the trench, and thrice were the Trojans and their brave allies thrown into confusion, whereon 12 of their noblest champions fell beneath the wheels of their chariots and perished by their own spears. The Achaeans, to their great joy, then drew Patroclus out of reach of the weapons and laid him on a litter. His comrades stood mourning round him, and among them fleet Achilles, who wept bitterly as he saw his true comrade lying dead upon his bier. He had sent him out with horses and chariots into battle, but his return he was not to welcome. Then Juno sent the busy sun, loth though he was, into the waters of Oceanus. So he set, and the Achaeans had rest from the tug and turmoil of war. Now the Trojans, when they had come out of the fight, unyoked their horses and gathered in assembly before preparing their supper. They kept their feet, nor would any dare to sit down, For fear had fallen upon them all because Achilles had shown himself after having held aloof so long from battle. Polydamas, son of Panthous, was first to speak, a man of judgment, who alone among them could look both before and after. He was comrade to Hector, and they had been born upon the same night, with all sincerity and goodwill therefore. He addressed them thus: "Look to it well, my friends. I would urge you to go back now to your city, and not wait here by the ships till morning, for we are far from our walls. So long as this man was at enmity with Agamemnon, the Achaeans were easier to deal with, and I would have gladly camped by the ships in the hope of taking them. But now I go in great fear of the fleet son of Peleus. He is so daring that he will never bide here on the plain whereon the Trojans and Achaeans fight with equal valor, but he will try to storm our city and carry off our women. Do then as I say, and let us retreat. For this is what will happen. The darkness of night will for a time stay, the son of Peleus. But if he find us here in the morning, when he sallies forth in full armour, we shall have knowledge of him in good earnest. Glad indeed will he be, who can escape and get back to Ilios, and many a Trojan will become meat for dogs and vultures. May I never live to hear it. If we do as I say, little though we may like it, we shall have strength in council during the night, and the great gates with the doors that close them will protect the city. At dawn we can arm and take our stand on the walls. He will then rue it if he sallies from the ships to fight us. He will go back when he has given his horses their fill of being driven all with us under our walls, and will be in no mind to try and force his way into the city. Neither will he ever sack it. Dogs shall devour him ere he do so." Hector looked fiercely at him and answered, "Polydamas, your words are not to my liking in that you bid us go back and be pent within the city. Have you not had enough of being cooped up behind walls? In the old days, the city of Priam was famous, the whole world over, for its wealth of gold and bronze. But our treasures are wasted out of our houses, and much goods have been sold away to Phrygia and fair Meonia, for the hand of Jove has been laid heavily upon us. Now, therefore, that the son of scheming Saturn has vouchsafed me to win glory here, and to hem the Achaeans in at their ships, prate no more in this fool's wise among the people. You will have no man with you, it shall not be. Do all of you as I now say. Take your suppers in your companies throughout the host, and keep your watches, and be wakeful every man of you. If any Trojan is uneasy about his possessions, let him gather them, and give them out among the people. Better let these, rather than the Achaeans, have them. At daybreak we will arm and fight about the ships. Granted that Achilles has again come forward to defend them, let it be as he will, but it shall go hard with him. I shall not shun him, but will fight him, to fall or conquer. The god of war deals out like measure to all, and the slayer may yet be slain." Thus spoke Hector, and the Trojans, fools that they were, shouted in applause, for Pallas Minerva had robbed them of their understanding. They gave ear to Hector with his evil counsel, but the wise words of Polydamas no man would heed. They took their supper throughout the host, and meanwhile through the whole night the Achaeans mourned Patroclus, and the son of Peleus led them in their lament. He laid his murderous hands upon the breast of his comrade, groaning again and again as a bearded lion, when a man who was chasing deer has robbed him of his young in some dense forest. When the lion comes back he is furious, and searches dingle and dell to track the hunter if he can find him, for he is mad with rage. Even so with many a sigh did Achilles speak among the Myrmidons, saying, "Alas! Vain were the words with which I cheered the hero Menoetius in his own house. I said that I would bring his brave son back again to Opoeis, after he had sacked Ilios and taken his share of the spoils. But Jove does not give all men their heart's desire. The same soil shall be reddened here at Troy by the blood of us both. For I too shall never be welcomed home by the old knight Peleus, nor by my mother Thetis, but even in this place shall the earth cover me. Nevertheless, O Patroclus, now that I am left behind you, I will not bury you till I have brought hither the head and armour of mighty Hector, who has slain you. 12 noble sons of Trojans will I behead before your bier to avenge you. Till I have done so, you shall lie as you are by the ships. And fair women of Troy and Dardanus, whom we have taken with spear and strength of arm when we sacked men's goodly cities, shall weep over you both night and day. Then Achilles told his men to set a large tripod upon the fire, that they might wash the clotted gore from off Patroclus. Thereon they set a tripod full of bath water onto a clear fire. They threw sticks onto it to make it blaze, and the water became hot as the flame played about the belly of the tripod. When the water in the cauldron was boiling, they washed the body, anointed it with oil, and closed its wounds with ointment that had been kept 9 years. Then they laid it on a bier and covered it with a linen cloth from head to foot, and over this they laid a fair white robe. Thus all night long did the Myrmidons gather round Achilles to mourn Patroclus. Then Jove said to Juno, his sister wife, "So, Queen Juno, you have gained your end, and have roused fleet Achilles. One would think that the Achaeans were of your own flesh and blood." And Juno answered, "Dread son of Saturn, why should you say this thing? May not a man, though he be only mortal and knows less than we do what he can for another person? And shall not I, foremost of all goddesses, both by descent and as wife to you who reign in heaven, devise evil for the Trojans if I am angry with them?" Thus did they converse. Meanwhile, Thetis came to the house of Vulcan, imperishable, star-bespangled, fairest of the abodes in heaven, a house of bronze wrought by the lame god's own hands. She found him busy with his bellows, sweating and hard at work, for he was making 20 tripods that were to stand by the wall of his house. And he set wheels of gold under them, all that they might go of their own selves to the assemblies of the gods, and come back again. Marvels indeed to see. They were finished all but the ears of cunning workmanship, which yet remained to be fixed to them. These he was now fixing, and he was hammering at the rivets. While he was thus at work, silver-footed, Thetis came to the house. Charis, of graceful headdress, wife to the far-famed lame god, came towards her as soon as she saw her, and took her hand in her own, saying, "Why have you come to our house, Thetis, honoured and ever welcome? For you do not visit us often. Come inside and let me set refreshment before you." The goddess led the way as she spoke, and bade Thetis sit on a richly decorated seat inlaid with silver. There was a footstool also under her feet. Then she called Vulcan and said, "Vulcan, come here. Thetis wants you." And the far-famed lame god answered, "Then it is indeed an august and honoured goddess who has come here. She it was that took care of me when I was suffering from the heavy fall which I had through my cruel mother's anger. For she would have got rid of me because I was lame. It would have gone hardly with me had not Eurynome, daughter of the ever-encircling waters of Oceanus, and Thetis taken me to their bosom. 9 years did I stay with them, and many beautiful works in bronze, brooches, spiral armlets, cups, and chains did I make for them in their cave, with the roaring waters of Oceanus foaming as they rushed ever past it. And no one knew, neither of gods nor men, save only Thetis and Eurynome, who took care of me. If, then, Thetis has come to my house, I must make her due requital for having saved me. Entertain her, therefore, with all hospitality. while I put by my bellows and all my tools." On this, the mighty monster hobbled off from his anvil, his thin legs plying lustily under him. He set the bellows away from the fire and gathered his tools into a silver chest. Then he took a sponge and washed his face and hands. His shaggy chest and brawny neck, he donned his shirt, grasped his strong staff, and limped towards the door. There were golden handmaids also who worked for him, and were like real young women, with sense and reason, voice also and strength, and all the learning of the immortals. These busied themselves as the king bade them, while he drew near to Thetis, seated her upon a goodly seat, and took her hand in his own, saying, "Why have you come to our house? Thetis, honoured and ever welcome. For you do not visit us often. Say what you want, and I will do it for you at once if I can, and if it can be done at all." Thetis wept and answered, "Vulcan, is there another goddess in Olympus whom the son of Saturn has been pleased to try with so much affliction as he has me? Me alone of the marine goddesses did he make subject to a mortal husband, Peleus, son of Aeacus, and sorely against my will did I submit to the embraces of one who was but mortal, and who now stays at home worn out with age. Neither is this all. Heaven vouchsafed me a son, hero among heroes, and he shot up as a sapling. I tended him as a plant in a goodly garden, and sent him with his ships to Iliad to fight the Trojans. But never shall I welcome him back to the house of Peleus. So long as he lives to look upon the light of the sun, he is in heaviness. And though I go to him, I cannot help him. King Agamemnon has made him give up the maiden whom the sons of the Achaeans had awarded him, and he wastes with sorrow for her sake. Then the Trojans hemmed the Achaeans in at their ships' sterns, and would not let them come forth. The elders, therefore, of the Argives besought Achilles, and offered him great treasure, whereon he refused to bring deliverance to them himself, but put his own armour on Patroclus, and sent him into the fight with much people after him. All day long they fought by the Scaean gates, and would have taken the city there and then, had not Apollo vouchsafed glory to Hector, and slain the valiant son of Menoetius, after he had done the Trojans much evil. Therefore I am suppliant at your knees, if haply you may be pleased to provide my son, whose end is near at hand, with helmet and shield, with goodly greaves fitted with ankle clasps, and with a breastplate, for he lost his own when his true comrade fell at the hands of the Trojans, and he now lies stretched on earth in the bitterness of his soul." And Vulcan answered, "Take heart, and be no more disquieted about this matter. Would that I could hide him from death's sight when his hour is come, so surely as I can find him, armour that shall amaze the eyes of all who behold it." When he had so said, he left her, and went to his bellows, turning them towards the fire, and bidding them do their office. 20 bellows blew upon the melting pots, and they blew blasts of every kind, some fierce to help him when he had need of them, and others less strong, as Vulcan willed it in the course of his work. He threw tough copper into the fire, and tin with silver and gold he set his great anvil on its block, and with one hand grasped his mighty hammer while he took the tongs in the other. First he shaped the shield so great and strong, adorning it all over and binding it round with a gleaming circuit in 3 layers, and the baldric was made of silver. He made the shield in 5 thicknesses, and with many a wonder did his cunning hand enrich it. He wrought the earth, the heavens, and the sea, the moon also at her full, and the untiring sun, with all the signs that glorify the face of heaven. The Pleiades, the Hyades, huge Orion, and the Bear, which men also call the Wain, and which turns round ever in one place, facing Orion, and alone never dips into the stream of Oceanus. He wrought also 2 cities, fair to see and busy with the hum of men. In the one were weddings and wedding feasts, and they were going about the city with brides whom they were escorting by torchlight from their chambers. Loud rose the cry of Hymen, and the youths danced to the music of flute and lyre, while the women stood each at her house door to see them. Meanwhile, the people were gathered in assembly, for there was a quarrel, and 2 men were wrangling about the blood money for a man who had been killed, the one saying before the people that he had paid damages in full, and the other that he had not been paid. Each was trying to make his own case good, and the people took sides, each man backing the side that he had taken. But the heralds kept them back, and the elders sate on their seats of stone in a solemn circle, holding the staves which the heralds had put into their hands. Then they rose, and each in his turn gave judgment, and there were 2 talents laid down, to be given to him whose judgment should be deemed the fairest. About the other city there lay encamped 2 hosts in gleaming armour, and they were divided whether to sack it or to spare it and accept the half of what it contained. But the men of the city would not yet consent, and armed themselves for a surprise. Their wives and little children kept guard upon the walls, and with them were the men who were past fighting through age. But the others sallied forth with Mars and Pallas, Minerva at their head. Both of them brought in gold and clad in golden raiment, great and fair with their armour as befitting gods, while they that followed were smaller. When they reached the place where they would lay their ambush, it was on a river-bed to which livestock of all kinds would come from far and near to water, here. Then they lay concealed, clad in full armour. Some way off them there were 2 scouts who were on the lookout for the coming of sheep or cattle, which presently came, followed by 2 shepherds who were playing on their pipes, and had not so much as a thought of danger. When those who were in ambush saw this, they cut off the flocks and herds and killed the shepherds. Meanwhile, the besiegers, when they heard much noise among the cattle as they sat in council, sprang to their horses and made with all speed towards them. When they reached them, they set battle in array by the banks of the river, and the hosts aimed their bronze-shod spears at one another. With them were strife and riot, and fell Fate, who was dragging 3 men after her, one with a fresh wound, and the other unwounded, while the third was dead, and she was dragging him along by his heel, and her robe was bedrabbled in men's blood. They went in and out with one another, and fought as though they were living people hailing away one another's dead. He wrought also a fair fallow field, large and thrice ploughed already. Many men were working at the plough within it, turning their oxen to and fro, furrow after furrow. Each time that they turned on, reaching the headland, a man would come up to them and give them a cup of wine, and they would go back to their furrows, looking forward to the time when they should again reach the headland. The part that they had ploughed was dark behind them, so that the field, though it was of gold, still looked as if it were being ploughed. Very curious to behold. He wrought also a field of harvest corn, and the reapers were reaping with sharp sickles in their hands. Swath after swath fell to the ground in a straight line behind them, and the binders bound them in bands of twisted straw. There were 3 binders, and behind them there were boys who gathered the cut corn in armfuls and kept on bringing them to be bound. Among them all, the owner of the land stood by in silence and was glad. The servants were getting a meal ready under an oak, for they had sacrificed a great ox and were busy cutting him up, while the women were making a porridge of much white barley for the labourers' dinner. He wrought also a vineyard, golden and fair to see, and the vines were loaded with grapes. The bunches overhead were black, but the vines were trained on poles of silver. He ran a ditch of dark metal all round it, and fenced it with a fence of tin. There was only one path to it, and by this the vintagers went when they would gather the vintage. Youths and maidens, all blithe and full of glee, carried the luscious fruit in plated baskets, and with them there went a boy who made sweet music with his lyre, and sang the Lino's song with his clear, boyish voice. He wrought also a herd of horned cattle. He made the cows of gold and tin, and they lowed as they came full speed out of the yards to go and feed among the waving reeds that grow by the banks of the river. Along with the cattle there went 4 shepherds, all of them in gold, and their 9 fleet dogs went with them. 2 terrible lions had fastened on a bellowing bull that was with the foremost cows, and bellow as he might, they hailed him. While the dogs and men gave chase, the lions tore through the bull's thick hide and were gorging on his blood and bowels. But the herdsmen were afraid to do anything, and only hounded on their dogs. The dogs dared not fasten on the lions, but stood by, barking and keeping out of harm's way. The god wrought also a pasture in a fair mountain dell, and a large flock of sheep, with a homestead and huts and sheltered sheepfolds. Furthermore, he wrought a green, like that which Daedalus once made in Knossos for lovely Ariadne. Hereon there danced youths and maidens, whom all would woo, with their hands on one another's wrists. The maidens wore robes of light linen, and the youths well-woven shirts that were slightly oiled. The girls were crowned with garlands, while the young men had daggers of gold that hung by silver baldricks. Sometimes they would dance deftly in a ring with merry twinkling feet, as it were a potter sitting at his work and making trial of his wheel to see whether it will run, and sometimes they would go all in line with one another. And much people was gathered joyously about the green. There was a bard also to sing to them and play his lyre, while 2 tumblers went about performing in the midst of them, when the man struck up with his tune. All round the outermost rim of the shield he set the mighty stream of the river Oceanus. Then, when he had fashioned the shield so great and strong, he made a breastplate also that shone brighter than fire. He made a helmet close-fitting to the brow and richly worked, with a golden plume overhanging it, and he made greaves also of beaten tin. Lastly, when the famed Lane god had made all the armour, he took it and set it before the mother of Achilles, whereon she darted like a falcon from the snowy summits of Olympus and bore away the gleaming armour from the house of Vulcan.